Politician Tiffany Henyard appears to have lost control of both governments. Now she's teasing a big announcement she claims will result in some of her opponents being arrested.
You might not be familiar with Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed super mayor of Doton, Illinois, but by the end of this, you'll be hooked. If you think you've seen political scandals before, think again. This one is so tangled in controversy it might seem like fiction, but it's all too real. Imagine a mayor forced out of her own home, under FBI investigation for corruption, and accused of using local law enforcement to detain her political rivals. And just when you think it couldn't get crazier, she's running for re-election. This is a political saga you won't want to miss.
Election.
Mayor Tiffany Henyard of Doton, Illinois, has recently found herself at the center of a growing controversy after revelations about her personal and financial behavior stirred significant public concern. Henyard, who earns a substantial income from her dual roles as both township supervisor and mayor, has been living in a rental property owned by Janetta Hall. What began as a friendly arrangement quickly spiraled into a dramatic and unsettling dispute. Hall claims the situation soured when Henyard allegedly broke an agreement that would have allowed another tenant to move in. Instead, Henyard persuaded Hall to rent the property to her starting in August. However, despite her high-paying public positions, Henyard and her boyfriend, Kim Woods, have failed to pay any rent, placing a heavy financial burden on Hall. Thousands of dollars in unpaid rent have now piled up, leaving Hall understandably upset, especially considering the stark contrast between Henyard's financial situation and her failure to meet basic rental obligations. This situation has captured the public's attention, raising concerns about Henyard's ability to fulfill her public duties when she can't even meet the demands of a simple rental contract. As the months passed with no rent paid, Hall initiated an eviction process in an attempt to recover her property and the unpaid rent. However, Henyard has continued her public duties with apparent defiance, seemingly unaffected by the growing controversy surrounding her financial behavior. Henyard's failure to pay rent has only added to a growing list of scandals during her time as mayor. Detractors argue that this situation is emblematic of a larger issue. How can someone entrusted with managing public resources as both a mayor and a township supervisor exhibit such a glaring lack of accountability in her personal life? The hypocrisy of someone in such a position of authority failing to fulfill basic financial obligations has raised further concerns among residents. The public's reaction has been one of confusion and frustration, especially given the increasing number of controversies surrounding her leadership. The issue has grown beyond a personal dispute over unpaid rent and now reflects on Henyard's leadership style and character. The contrast between her high-paying government roles and her failure to meet basic financial responsibilities has fueled criticism, casting doubt on her suitability for continued leadership in Doton. As the story continues to unfold, the debate over her leadership and ability to govern effectively amidst her personal failures is becoming louder. Mayor Tiffany Henyard of Doton, Illinois, is facing a mounting legal and ethical crisis that is deeply complicating her role as both a public official and a member of the community. The ongoing dispute over unpaid rent with her landlord, Janetta Hall, has taken a troubling turn, revealing a side of Henyard that many did not expect. Once friends, the relationship between Henyard and Hall has deteriorated in a way that now mirrors the deepening divide between Henyard and many Doton residents. The dispute began when Henyard, despite her high-paying government positions, moved into a rental property owned by Hall. Since August, however, Henyard and Woods have failed to pay rent, leaving Hall in a difficult financial situation. To make matters worse, Hall claims that Henyard has gone to extreme lengths to block her access to the property, including allegedly changing the locks and garage codes to prevent Hall from conducting legally required property inspections. This is just one example of Henyard's increasing defiance toward the law and the responsibilities she is meant to uphold. Hall, having given the required 48-hour notice for property inspections, was denied entry, prompting her to begin the eviction process. However, the situation has only become more complicated as Henyard and Woods have evaded attempts to serve eviction papers, further frustrating Hall's efforts to resolve the matter legally. What began as a private financial dispute has now evolved into a public spectacle, raising serious questions about Henyard's leadership and character as both mayor of Doton and township supervisor. Henyard holds considerable authority and influence, but her actions in this dispute have raised doubts about her ability to manage public resources and meet her obligations as a public servant. By preventing Hall from accessing her own property, Henyard appears to be disregarding both her legal and financial obligations, as well as the trust placed in her by the public. The public's frustration has grown as more residents question whether Henyard can continue to serve as a representative of the community while displaying such blatant disregard for the law. Hall, who once considered Henyard a friend, is now grappling with the humiliation of being barred from her own property by a sitting mayor, someone who should be an example of transparency, responsibility, and respect for the rule of law. This dispute has added to the growing list of scandals surrounding Henyard's time as mayor, casting a shadow over her leadership and raising serious questions about her ability to continue in public service. The situation has been further complicated by Henyard's ongoing resistance to the eviction process, which has left Hall, the local sheriff's office, and the community in a state of uncertainty. Henyard's actions are seen by many as a flagrant abuse of power, as she continues to ignore both her financial and legal responsibilities while occupying a position of authority. For the residents of Doton, this issue is no longer just a landlord-tenant dispute, it has become a symbol of their concerns about Henyard's leadership. Her failure to meet basic financial obligations, combined with her apparent disregard for the legal processes she is supposed to respect, has created a growing sense of distrust and disillusionment. Whether Henyard will ultimately be held accountable for her actions remains unclear, but it's certain that her behavior has eroded the trust of those around her. As this eviction saga continues, the calls for accountability are only growing louder, with many questioning whether a mayor who refuses to follow the laws she is supposed to enforce is fit to lead her community. The growing legal issues and public discontent have deepened the rift between Henyard and the people of Doton, who must now reckon with whether they can continue to tolerate a leader whose actions seem to subvert the very principles she was elected to uphold.
His landlord, and she says she came to this Thornton Township meeting Tuesday night, hoping to get paid.
The situation surrounding Mayor Tiffany Henyard of Doton, Illinois, and her partner Kim Woods has become an increasingly perplexing and controversial issue, particularly given their significant financial standing. Despite earning over $300,000 annually between their roles, Henyard as mayor and Woods benefiting from a steady income through a township program, the couple has reportedly refused to pay a $200 rent increase for the property they lease from landlord Janetta Hall. Hall, who once considered Henyard a trusted figure in the community, is left frustrated and bewildered by their refusal to meet this relatively small increase, given their financial resources. Henyard claims the non-payment is due to rising property taxes, but with their high earnings, this explanation is hard to accept for many. The situation has drawn widespread attention, with residents and observers questioning how such an issue could arise when the couple clearly has the means to cover the increase. Hall, now facing the stress and humiliation of dealing with non-paying tenants, is grappling with the reality that someone in Henyard's financial position and with her responsibilities as a public official is seemingly refusing to fulfill basic obligations. As a public servant, Henyard was supposed to set an example of fiscal responsibility, but her actions have created a stark disjunction between her financial mismanagement and her public persona. This discrepancy has only deepened as Hall pursues legal avenues to resolve the dispute, even hiring a process server to deliver court documents, as Henyard and Woods are allegedly evading legal proceedings, including eviction notices. The entire situation, which seems almost absurd for someone in Henyard's position, is being watched by the public with a mix of disbelief and frustration. For a mayor, particularly one with substantial resources, not to meet basic financial obligations is a troubling act of negligence that has damaged her reputation and raised serious concerns about her leadership abilities. What began as a simple financial dispute has now become a matter of public trust in Doton, where residents expect their leaders to adhere to higher standards. Henyard's actions, or lack thereof, are now seen as a betrayal of the values that the community expects from its leaders. Her refusal to address a modest rent increase casts a shadow over her ability to lead with integrity. It's baffling that someone in her position would let this issue escalate, causing significant stress for Hall, who has been forced to resort to extreme legal actions to recover unpaid rent. For Hall, who once considered Henyard a friend and trusted ally, this situation has become an intensely difficult and bizarre ordeal. Hall is now forced to pursue legal action against someone she once confided in and supported, which has compounded both the emotional and financial strain of the dispute. Hall's frustration is understandable. How could someone with so much financial security allow such a situation to unfold? The community is also grappling with this same question. Henyard's actions have caused many to question her judgment and leadership abilities in a town where she once made a name for herself as a trailblazer and advocate for change. Henyard's apparent refusal to pay a moderate rent increase is just the latest in a series of questionable actions that have undermined her credibility. Residents who once admired her are now beginning to see her in a different light. As the public's trust in her leadership continues to erode, this rent dispute has become emblematic of a larger issue: accountability. Henyard's actions seem to contradict the principles she is supposed to uphold as a public servant, and this situation has amplified concerns about her ability to lead. Many residents are now wondering if this financial disregard, coupled with her resistance to legal processes, will be the final straw that forces the people of Doton to demand a change in leadership. What started as a small issue has now spiraled into a larger controversy that is placing Henyard's leadership under a microscope. The community's growing frustration and disbelief at her actions are palpable as the mayor, despite her secure financial position, continues to evade responsibility. The situation has reached a boiling point, with a series of disturbing revelations about Henyard's financial management and leadership style that have left both residents and local officials in disbelief. The town of Doton is facing severe financial struggles, and under Henyard's leadership, the situation has only worsened. Despite the town's staggering deficit of over $365 million, a report by former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot uncovered alarming misuse of taxpayer funds, including substantial purchases from companies like Amazon, Wayfair, and Walgreens. For instance, in early 2023, Henyard made a shocking 40,000 Amazon purchase, which was followed by nearly 7,500 spent on Wayfair in September 2023. To make matters worse, Lightfoot's investigation revealed that the village had issued over $6 million in checks to vendors that were printed but never sent, leaving businesses and suppliers unpaid and in financial limbo. Adding fuel to the fire, police officers in the municipality were found to be receiving overtime pay exceeding their base salaries, with one officer earning nearly $102,000 in overtime alone, on top of a base salary of $73,500. This reckless spending, paired with a severe lack of accountability, has left the town's finances in ruins. The people of Doton are becoming increasingly frustrated, especially as Henyard seems indifferent to the crisis. During a heated public meeting, when trustees questioned her financial decisions and refused to approve expenses without proper paperwork, Henyard snapped, saying, "You all forget I'm the leader." This outburst only served to fuel the growing distrust between her and the trustees. In a now infamous 90-minute Facebook Live video, Henyard addressed her critics in a fiery tirade, accusing them of engaging in a power and money grab and threatening to have her opponents arrested without specifying charges. This only added to the turmoil, as her comments were seen as an attempt to deflect from the mounting evidence of corruption and financial mismanagement under her leadership. What is perhaps most astonishing is that, despite all these scandals, Henyard is still running for re-election. The fact that she is seeking another term after so many accusations of financial mismanagement and corruption speaks volumes about her defiance and disregard for the growing public outcry. For many residents of Doton, the situation has become a dramatic spectacle. Henyard's extravagant spending and open hostility toward those who challenge her decisions have only deepened the divide between her and the people she serves. It's an almost unfathomable situation. A mayor whose town is on the brink of financial collapse continues to evade accountability while living a life of extravagance. Her ongoing battle to maintain power despite the mounting evidence against her has left the community divided and questioning whether Doton can survive under her leadership. The political drama continues to unfold, and with each passing day, it becomes clearer that Henyard's grip on power is slipping, even as she desperately clings to it. The situation in Doton is now a reflection of broader issues: financial mismanagement, corruption, and a lack of leadership accountability. The town's residents are left to wonder how much longer they can tolerate this toxic environment before demanding change, and whether Henyard's re-election bid will serve as a final opportunity for the community to reclaim their future or mark the beginning of an even darker chapter in Doton's political history.
Because I'm at wit's end, and I fear that I'm going to want to foreclose this if I can't get this matter.
Despite being under FBI investigation, facing eviction, and embroiled in a public feud with her own trustees, Mayor Tiffany Henyard of Doton, Illinois, remains steadfast in her decision to run for re-election, convinced she will secure overwhelming support. Her confidence in winning another term is striking, though it seems deeply perplexing given the ongoing scandals surrounding her. After months of dodging rent payments, Henyard's landlord, Janetta Hall, reportedly paid her a personal visit, claiming that the mayor had been avoiding both her and the rent increase. However, the broader question persists: how can someone involved in so many controversies expect to garner enough support to win re-election? According to Chab Beller, a trustee opposed to Henyard, the community is no longer willing to be led by her. Beller argued that Henyard's actions have devastated the village, and the people are ready for a change. The irony is that despite Henyard's claims of fighting for the people, her actions suggest the opposite. Instead of addressing the community's pressing needs, she has spent village funds on lavish events, including one where R&B singer Keisha Cole and rapper Jay Holiday performed. This has drawn intense criticism from the community, with critics arguing that Henyard seems more focused on maintaining her image and comfort than on the welfare of Doton. To make matters worse, Henyard has employed local police officers as her personal bodyguards, pulling them from their regular duties to escort her around town. These officers are reportedly working overtime, some clocking over 100 hours per paycheck. This practice has sparked frustration, especially from trustee Brittany Norwood, who criticized Henyard at a public hearing, saying that police officers should be focusing on defending the community, not protecting the mayor. This paints a grim picture of a town in turmoil where finances are in ruins due to reckless spending, and Henyard's own behavior has caused deep division and frustration among residents. It's not just the village of Doton that is suffering. Henyard's management of the Thorn Township, where she also serves as supervisor, is in disarray, with residents growing increasingly irate over her handling of their concerns. Despite this, Henyard remains defiant, insisting that she is the one being wronged and that everything she does is for the good of the community. Meanwhile, town records reveal that Henyard and her associates have spent over $67,000 on extravagant vacations to places like Portland, Austin, Atlanta, and New York City, often traveling first class and staying in luxury hotels like the Four Seasons. In fact, her group racked up a staggering $113,000 bill at the Marriott in Times Square during a trip to New York. These lavish expenses raise serious questions about Henyard's priorities and the justification for using public funds for such high-end trips when the town's finances are in deep distress. Henyard's behavior often seems more in line with that of a reality TV star constantly performing for the cameras and living a life of luxury while the people of Doton continue to struggle. The sheriff has had to visit her property multiple times to serve legal notices, which is deeply concerning, especially considering Henyard's position of power and her hefty salary of over $350,000 per year. Her grip on power, which extends to the police force, has led some frustrated residents to draw comparisons to South American dictators, believing Henyard has turned Doton into her personal fiefdom. Accusations of abuse of power have mounted, with critics alleging that she is more focused on promoting herself than fulfilling her duties as a public servant. The situation in Doton has reached a breaking point, with mounting discontent and calls for change. Despite all the scandals, financial mismanagement, and accusations against her, Henyard continues to push forward with her re-election campaign, showing no signs of stepping down. Her determination to run for a second term, despite overwhelming public dissatisfaction and mounting legal and financial troubles, only serves to deepen the resentment and frustration among Doton's residents. The key question now is whether the people of Doton will finally demand accountability and change, or if Henyard will manage to cling to power, using it to further her own interests while the village suffers. As the community grapples with the fallout from her actions, it remains uncertain whether this will be the final chapter in Henyard's tumultuous political career, or if she will somehow manage to turn the tide and secure another term in office.